What I want to do before I begin to preach is I want to give you guys a gift. Who likes gifts? Good. Okay, so yes, thank you, Chris. I recognize that hand. So what I'd like you to do is sometimes on Sundays, I don't know if this is true for you, but sometimes on Sunday we're rushing around. Anybody get this? And you're really busy. And what happens when you're busy and rushed is you kind of you're short in your breath and you're anxious to get going, and you sit down like, oh man, and it's like there's this knot in your stomach that I forget something. And what I want to give you is a chance to breathe. So I'd like you to close your eyes, and I'd like you just to take a deep breath. Just keep your eyes closed for a minute. You know, Paul was preaching to the people of Athens, and he said, the God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by human hands. And he is not served by human hands, as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. Keep breathing. That breath is a gift from God. Deep verse. In Isaiah 42, it says, this is what the Lord says, the creator of the heavens, who stretched them out, who spreads out the earth, with all that springs from it, and gives breath to its people, and life to those who walk in it. I, the Lord, have called you in righteousness. I will take hold of your hand. I will keep you and will make you to be a covenant for the people and a light to the Gentiles, to open the eyes that are blind, to free captives from prison, and to release from the dungeons those who sit in darkness. Keep breathing. And in John 20, verses 21 and 22, Jesus has resurrected from the dead. He appears to his disciples and he says this, peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you. And with that, he breathed on them and said, receive the Holy Spirit. Breathe. You can open your eyes, but keep breathing. Very important. We're on week 2 of a series called Reimagining Church. And it's a different type of series because we've integrated a small group study, and we're hoping that for the next 5 weeks, as many as are able would join in a growth group to not only learn, but to participate, because it's not just that you will be blessed, it's that we'll be blessed because you're part of the conversation. There's a conversation taking place in the church, and we need your voice. There's nearly 70% of our congregation presently involved in the small group aspect of this, and I would love that number to go just a little higher. So if you're presently not in a growth group, if you could use your communication card or speak to Diane, or if you see some of the pictures of the growth group leaders and feel like you could approach one of them because they look friendlier than myself or Diane, just go ahead and do that, okay? But we'd love for as many as possible. We had our growth group last Sunday. We had a really animated conversation. It was fantastic, and really got us thinking. And as part of the study, what we're doing on Sunday mornings is we're kind of just using the letter of 1 Peter to kind of guide our thinking about the nature of church as we kind of reimagine what church could be. And so last Sunday, we reimagined church as church life on the margins of culture. We consider how church basically has been sidelined in its influence in our culture. That in this society, we've become like exiles and strangers. And it's in the state of exile that Peter says that we are to be alert and sober-minded with regard to where God might be at work, with regard to how we should be praying, and with regard to how Satan may be baiting us, because he would like nothing better than the reputation of the church to be brought down. And we recognize that we can no longer expect that people are just going to go to church because that's a foreign concept to most people. On a Sunday morning, they're not thinking about going to church. They're thinking about brunch. All you can eat. Now you're thinking about it too. Church has become culturally irrelevant to most people. And so we need to consider, if people aren't going to come to church, how do we take church and go to people? You know, it used to be that if someone wanted to be a missionary, they would sign up and they would go somewhere of a different culture to be a missionary. The word missionary means sent one. But without even noticing it, it's as if God has brought a foreign culture to Canada. And by default, we find ourselves in a missionary situation. And we find as we're looking at the teaching of the Bible, what we discover is, wait a second, all Christians are sent ones. We're all supposed to be missionaries, sent to reach people who don't know the good news with the good news. I mentioned last week that in Canada, it's not the only country where we're experiencing this shift in culture. It's taking place in all of what was once called the Christian West. At one time, we could assume that people knew what Christianity was about. We can no longer assume that. For instance, in a book by Stuart Murray, he tells a couple of stories. He tells a story of a London school, London, England, where a teenager was sitting, he had no church connection, and he hears a Christmas story for the first time. The teacher tells it well, and he's fascinated by this amazing story. And risking his friend's mockery after the lesson, he thanks the teacher for the story. He says, one thing had disturbed him. So he asks, why did they give the baby a swear word for a name? In another instance, one Sunday in Oxford, a man visits a church building to collect something for his partner who works during the week in a creative arts project that the church runs. He arrives as the morning congregation is leaving, and he recognizes the minister whom he knows, and he's surprised. He asks, what are all these people doing here? I didn't know churches were open on Sundays. We're in a foreign culture, one that does no longer recognize the Christian message. And it's our calling to bring the good news to the culture to which we have been sent. Therefore, it's extremely important that we understand what the good news, also called the gospel, that we understand what that is. Now, here's the problem. If you've grown up in the church, it can be very easy for your eyes to begin to glaze over at this point. As you are listening to me, my voice is morphing. I'm sounding more like Charlie Brown's teacher. It's as if I'm wah, 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 wah. You'll be tempted to tune out.
Yes, sir.
I mean, after all, isn't the gospel just kind of basic 101 kind of stuff? We're more mature than that. We've moved on from milk. Now we're eating meat. I'm not so sure that the gospel is necessarily as simple as what we've always assumed. So what I would like to do is address something that I think you're going to find quite clarifying and satisfying, although it'll probably lead to some very interesting discussion in your growth groups, and I wish I could be part of them, although part of me is glad I'm not. You see, I think that what has happened in the West is that we've truncated the gospel. We've made it less than it's meant to be. And what I'm suggesting is that the gospel, the good news, is bigger than we ever imagined. And it's more than we think it is. And we've limited the gospel because of an oversimplified characterization of its message. And as the church has kind of woken up to the fact that our culture has changed and that we've been marginalized as exiles in culture, theologians and missiologists have tried to discover, how did this happen? How is it now that the lands we used to send missionaries to are now sending missionaries to us? And part of what they discovered is that we were subtly seduced by our own culture. For so long, it had been influenced and shaped by the Christian message. We somehow assumed that the culture itself was safe. And that what it offered was, of course, Christian because, after all, the West is Christian. And so we became a little less discerning. And one of the subtle seductions of Western culture that infiltrated Christianity was the exaltation of the individual. And soon the gospel became all about us. Specifically, it was all about me. See, about how Jesus died for me and my sins. And now I can have a personal, even a private relationship with Jesus. Now, at one level, that's absolutely true. There is a need to have a personal encounter with the message of Jesus. Each person needs to personally accept forgiveness that God offers to them. It doesn't come automatically. Each person has to personally accept that Jesus died for their sin in their place to atone for their sin in order that they can receive forgiveness. You see, the gospel does come to the individual. The gospel comes, it rewires an individual's heart so that they're made new. They're given new life by receiving new birth when the Spirit of God comes to reside in them. And when Jesus was talking to a religious leader, he told them that no one can see the kingdom of God without being born again. And he goes on to explain that being born again is to have the Spirit of God live in you and give you a new kind of life, a qualitatively better type of life, an abundant life. And it's accurate to say that those who have accepted God's gift of forgiveness, who have been born again, have been shaped with the gospel. And that good news changes them. And that's why people can testify about how their personal lives have been changed on account of the difference that Jesus has upon them. And this is the gospel. But it's not all of the gospel. You see, good news always stands over and against bad news. And part of the bad news is that we've all sinned. And in Hebrews we're warned that people are destined to die once and after that to face judgment. And all people are to be judged for their sins. But those who have received forgiveness have had their sins forgiven because of God's offer, have already had their sin judged now. Your sin has been judged. And when Jesus was punished, he was punished on your behalf when he was on that cross. But there is other bad news that the gospel responds to. You see, the bad news of judgment is not only that individuals are judged, but also whole societies and nations are judged. Remember the story Jesus tells of separating the sheep from the goats? He says he separates the nations as one separates the sheep and the goats. In Revelation, we read that God comes to judge the nations. And just as there are individual implications to the good news, so too there are sociological implications. You see, the good news comes to address the personal judgment. It also comes to people groups to address corporate judgment of societies, where social injustices and systemic evil is brought into the light of God's scrutiny. And just as the good news to the individual is providing new life through new birth, now there is good news for society in that God has created a new community that allows us to have a new identity. And that's why in 1 Peter 2:9 he can say, but you... Can you advance this? It's not working. He says in 1 Peter 2:9, but you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. You see, not only were we given a new life, we were given a new identity, but providing a new community to which we belong, a new family to which we belong. And it provides a new primary identity. Your primary identity is not Canadian any longer. When you became a Christian, you said, my primary identity is no longer there. And this helps to explain why we're treated as foreigners and aliens and strangers in society. And the challenge is, how do we present this new society while living in our host society? Peter tells us we are to submit ourselves to human authorities, like governments. We're still supposed to submit to them. We're also to abstain from sinful desires which society has embraced. In fact, the principle he gives is it's better to suffer than to sin. Think about that. It's better to suffer than to sin, says Peter. He also talks that when we're treated badly, he's constantly reminding people when we are treated badly, we're to respond to hostility with kindness. If you haven't read 1 Peter during this series, I really encourage you to read this letter in light of this. He also says that we're called to be holy, just like God is holy. In fact, we're called a holy nation in that text. The word holy means set apart. And as a community, we're to be set apart, different from other communities of people, so that there'll be a place on earth where the goodness of God's reign can be seen and experienced. You see, we are to be a community which, however imperfectly, lives out the ethic and life of God on earth, just like Jesus did. And there is a sense in which we are called out of our old communities, even while we continue life within them. Do you know what the English word is for those who have been called out to form a new community like the Bible talks about? Church. That's the new community. You see, the church is a reference not to a building or service, but to a group of people who have been called out to be an alternative community. And you see, what's going to draw people to our community is not that we're so much like everybody else. It'll be what makes us different. It's going to be the distinctive, the Christian distinctive that's going to draw them. And that experience, that difference, is more acutely experienced when we can shed anything that unnecessarily hinders other people from experiencing what truly makes us different as a people. And friends, what makes us different is not the fact that we dress up on the weekend when everybody else is dressing down. It's not the fact that we listen to organ music when everybody else listens to guitar. It's not the fact that we're speaking 18th century English using thee and thou. Those aren't the thing that makes us different. Those are the things that can distract people from seeing the real difference. They can become unnecessary barriers that keep people from experiencing true difference of this community. No. So what is then our true distinctive that our community will see and catch your attention? Peter describes the community, our church, in this way. As you come to him, the living stone, rejected by humans, but chosen by God and precious to him, you also, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house. You see, we're like stones in a building. And if we go on to read that verse, we find out that Jesus is the cornerstone, and we're all meant to align our lives around Jesus. And, hello? Just trying to be sensitive there to the Spirit. And when we each align our lives to Jesus, we come together as a temple, as this building. And he longs not only to fill us as individuals, he longs to fill us corporately to be his temple. And for the Jew, the temple was the place where God's Spirit dwelled on earth. It was the place where God manifested himself. And as we align ourselves to the cornerstone, to Jesus, we become so unified that God is manifested among us. So that there's something distinctive about us as a people, rather than being just like everybody else. We're different from the rest of society. So that leaves the question, well, what is that true distinctive? Well, Peter tells us very plainly. Now that you have purified yourself by obeying the truth, so that you have sincere love for each other, love each other deeply from the heart. See, what should mark our community is a deeper love than they have experienced anywhere else, in any other community. See, here's where the gospel has failed the Western world. What has happened is that we've truncated the gospel so it became solely about the individual. And it became all about me and my personal relationship. And what we lost sight of was the fact that we've been born again into a new family, where we are called to give up our lives and lay them down for the sake of the other. You see, in the West, we have so much preached John 3:16, which talks about God loving us so much that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. That we forgot all about 1 John 3:16, which says this is how we know what love is. Jesus laid down his life for us. Ah, yes, we say. And it goes on, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. Oh, that part. There I go here. Do you think if people who don't normally go to church were to come to this church and they just observed us and witnessed our company and hear our conversations, could be flies on the wall in our homes, and observe our lives, do you think they would conclude these people are connected to the selfless, sacrificing, unconditional, relentless source of love? It's obvious. I think the truth is we don't love each other very well. Many people at MBBC feel lonely, unknown, and anonymous. We got to address this. So I'm going to take a risk. I could get fired. You see, the truth is that many people in MBC, they don't feel a deep love coming from this church community. They feel they have friendly people, nice people, really nice people. Sunday morning, those people are so nice. But they themselves, they feel disconnected, even though they may attend regularly. In fact, my assessment of our community is that I believe there are more people who feel disconnected than who feel connected. I think most people think there's a group of people who really are connected, but I'm not one of them. There are many people who have deep friendships, it's just not me. And they think the problem is them. So I want to ask you to do something brave and vulnerable. Because I want to visualize just how prevalent this connection really is. I'm not saying we're not friendly. I'm just saying sometimes maybe that's the problem. What if we took off the masks of friendliness and we just became vulnerable? Instead of pretending we got it all together, let people know we really don't. What if we try to be honest? So I'm going to ask people in a second who feel disconnected and lonely, as if they're not. You know there's a part of the church that must be really connected. It's just that you don't feel like it's you. Okay? It's not to say people aren't friendly to you, but it's this sense of disconnection. I'm going to ask you to stand a minute. Let me just give this qualifier. If you're new, don't feel obligated. We don't expect you to feel connected yet. Okay? I don't want to make you feel awkward. But if that's you, if I'm describing you and you know it, I'd like you to stand now. Okay, you can be seated. I suspect there's others who didn't feel brave enough to stand. You see, the truth is that we're often a collection of lonely individuals rather than a community that deeply loves one another. You see, Peter says that we're living stones who are to be joined together into a temple in which God dwells. And the problem is we're often more just like a pile of rocks. We haven't allowed ourselves, for one reason or another, to be joined together in love. You see, friends, when we resist developing a deeper love for each other, we're actually resisting God's love, because that's what God's love is moving us to. You see, we love because He first loved us. And if He's loved us, we will love others. Perhaps it's because we thought it was all about us. Could it be that this cultural imposition on individualism, which distorted the good news when we heard it, left us feeling like it was a message about me, instead of it being a message about us, this new society that we belong to? See, friends, the gospel is bigger than we imagined. And it's not just something that we're shaped with, but the gospel is something we're to be shaped by. It's meant to inform our gathering, so that when we are together, this new community of deep love is experienced on earth by those who belong. And I think we fall short of this. And it's not something that committees can organize, or ministries can plan, or pastors can dictate. It comes as we submit our lives to the gospel, which is about and for community, and no longer just about ourselves. There's another way in which the gospel addresses bad news. There's another judgment that comes, and it's with regard to the world and the prince of this world. In this regard, we're told in John 16:11, we are told the prince of this world now stands condemned. The prince of the world is a reference to Satan, and he, said Jesus, already stands condemned. But we're further told that this world will one day be judged. There is a judgment coming to the whole world order. It judges angels and all the created order. And just as the good news to individuals is the new life that comes from the new birth, just as the good news for societies is that there's a new people and a new community now that we can get a new identity, so too there's good news to the world order. And it says, that there is a new government, a new kingdom, because there is another ruler, a greater king and a better kingdom, and this king comes to restore all of creation. That's why in Mark, Jesus says, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. Not just people. And in Romans, we're told that the creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the freedom and glory of the children of God. In Ephesians 1, 7-10, we read this. In him we have redemption through his blood. It's frozen, yeah, that's okay. We have redemption through his blood. That pulls out the individual implication of the gospel. The forgiveness of sins in accordance with the riches of God's grace, which he lavished on us with all wisdom and understanding, to make known to us the mystery of his will and according to his good pleasure. That's talking about the corporate sense, the sociological sense. The good news comes to us as a people. We can't know him without each other. And it says that which he purposed in Christ to be put in effect when the times reach their fulfillment, to bring unity to all things in heaven and on earth under Christ. That's the cosmological. There's coming a time when heaven and earth will be unified under one leader, one king, one government who will rule them all. And by him all things will be restored and renewed. You see, there's an individual implication to the gospel, there's a sociological implication, but there is also this cosmological implication. The new community is part of a greater kingdom. And the prayer that Jesus taught us to pray was not, your spirit come to me, was not you come to the church, it was that your kingdom come. The spirit comes to us, it comes into the community, and that is to make the spirit until he reigns over all creation through us. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The church, made up of changed, spirit-filled individuals, are meant to be outposts are meant to come together to make outposts of heaven on earth, places where love and justice and kindness and mercy can be found. And we are to penetrate the darkness of Satan's domain with the light of God's love. You see, the good news is not only about individual salvation, it is about the fact that God has not given up on this world. And he will restore all things. And he has chosen us to be part of this redeeming, restoring, saving work. And so he comes into each life, changing us from the inside out by his Spirit, and he brings us together in communities of love, which others can see and experience among us. And then he sends us out into the world, disdained by evil and hatred and darkness and disorder, in order that we might penetrate it with life and light and love and peace and reconciliation and order and beauty. You see, friends, our church is not to be shaped according to our individual preferences, but we're to be shaped by the very gospel that we've experienced. So when we've experienced forgiveness, we're meant to be a forgiving community. When we have experienced grace, we are meant to be a grace-filled community. When we have had judgment pass over us because God took judgment from us by allowing Jesus to die on our behalf, we are to be not meant to be a judgmental society. Because we've experienced love, we're meant to give love. We're meant to be shaped by this very gospel we've experienced. And so, friends, now the ball is in your court. See, what you think and what you feel about this sermon is not half as important as what you will now do. Peter says, now that you have purified yourselves by obeying the truth so that you have sincere love for each other, love each other deeply from the heart. That's what we're meant to be about. Any questions? Yes.
You talk about the church, but the thing that always bags in my mind is, as a church, we have the Baptists, we have the Pentecostals, we have all these different denominations. What's the point?
Yeah. So just as if we had individuals thinking it was all about them, and it would destroy really our church unity. If we just kind of huddle to ourselves, as long as I'm happy, I don't care about my other fellow. If we had churches that thought it was just about them and not about the kingdom, the greater thing, then you'd have, and that's what happens sometimes in denominationalism.
But doesn't denominationalism separate?
Yes, it can, but it doesn't necessarily need to. It depends what we make as first priority, the kingdom or our denominations. So right now in Burlington, there's a group of church pastors from across denominational lines that meet to say, how can we help the church of Burlington grow and prosper in all of its flavors? I often tell people that that the kingdom of God is like ice cream. Some of it's vanilla. We happen to be heavenly hash, a little bit of fruit. A lot of nuts in our congregation, but
That's the vein of truth right there.
But it's all ice cream. It's all about and so the kingdom is the most important thing.
It is. I agree.
Yeah, and it's when it becomes a secondary thing that the problems arise. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the little experiment you just did about connectedness.
Yes.
I really honor the people that stood up. I didn't. Not because I don't feel disaffected, but because the reason I come here is because I feel connected to Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And if I were to gauge the effectiveness of a church by the way Jesus Christ's followers behave toward one another, I'm afraid we would all be disappointed at times.
Yeah.
We're imperfect people.
Yes.
But the reason we come to church is because we hopefully feel very connected
Yes.
to the cornerstone.
Yes. And we should, but that if we're connected to love, it should bleed out of us to others, like you. See, that's the problem. The problem is if we just come here for our private experience with Jesus, we're still just a bunch of rocks. It's not about how, and so we after this, so here, I'm not going to tell you what you should do because that really is up to you, but I'll tell you what I would do if I'd heard this sermon. I'd be finding someone who felt disconnected and say, you don't know how much I appreciate you and how much you're loved, and I'm going to build into your life. I know we're all relationally full, but I'll tell you what, you begin to take risks like that, there's space that creates openings for your life if you'll allow people in. We can't know Jesus apart from each other. Yes, we got a question here and then one back.
A favorite quote from a favorite movie, and it's something that I say to myself whenever I'm feeling lonely or hurt in any way emotionally, and it's simply this: when God closes a door, somewhere He opens a window.
Yeah.
And I think that can apply to any aspect of your life. Struggles with work, struggles with family, struggles with children, a loss, meeting someone new, being nervous, relationship problems. Because I believe that to be true. I believe that deeply, that whenever you're questioning God or questioning something that's gone wrong, or you've been praying for weeks for something to happen and it's not happening, whenever you feel doubt or shame or regret, I say that to myself. He's closed the door. Somewhere there's a window that's been opened. I just have to keep the faith, and I'll find the open window.
Yeah.
And it works for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll work for everybody, but it really works for me. And whenever I'm feeling at a loss or I'm feeling like I need something, I go to church. I don't go regularly, I admit that. I'm a visitor here today. But whenever I feel a need that I can't fill with family or friends, I go to church.
Oh yeah, Rob.
Is the fulfillment of the kingdom, will we ever see it?
Yes, one day we will see the fulfillment of the kingdom. Is when the king comes to earth and he reconciles all things to himself. One day he's going to come.
What do we see today?
What do we see today? We see glimpses, signposts and signs. We are meant to be pointers to something greater than ourselves. There is a kingdom where Jesus reigns. What does it look like? I'll show you. We'll build rubble houses in Haiti because we want to do something to express the love of God to a broken people. What does it look like? It looks like I'll talk to you at the break and I'll say, I can see you're down. Can I pray with you? Because I want the kingdom to come for you and I'm concerned for you. It looks like anytime we see a need and in the name of Jesus we go and we minister, even a cup of water offered in his name will not go without reward. It means that we have eyes open to what Jesus might do if he was us, and we submit ourselves because when he filled us by his Spirit, he communicates to us. And as a community, we do the same thing. We look out into our community. Where can we, as a community, bring the kingdom? And so we see a group of people where they're low income and financially unable, we say we could do a bright corner ministry to people because it would help and it would bring the kingdom. We see a group of foreigners who are meeting outside in the cold and they ask for a building. We could do that. We could provide a place for them to gather, even if we don't speak their language, but somehow the love of God might speak to their hearts to know that we love them. And so we do that. We want the kingdom to be made visible to those who don't yet see it because we are connected to the King. Yes, ma'am.
We are reaching out to the world to show the love of God. I have a sneaking suspicion that in this very sanctuary there is brokenness plenty.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
But because we all have beautiful smiling faces on, half of us probably don't know that the person sitting next to us is a person.
Yeah.
So there is a need for being honest.
Absolutely. And that's what I tried to get us to do today. Yes, Joe?
I would be disconnected.
Yeah. And that's one way we've tried to help people get connected to through growth groups. So we recognize, someone asked, do you think we have a church full of introverts? Right? It could be. Like, I know I'm up front, but you know what I do on Sunday afternoon? When I don't have my growth group? Don't talk to me. I'll tell you that much for sure. I'm not a nice guy. I'm refueling by myself, thank you very much. I'm a bit more introverted than I used to be. Introversion, extroversion has to do with how you're fueled. Some people get fueled when they're with people. Put them with people that come away, that was great. If I'm with people too long, like you, I'm just tired. It's like I really need to get alone and I want to read a book. I want to have a cup of coffee. And it's not that you aren't nice people. It's just that that's how I fuel. And so sometimes the effort needed to kind of talk to somebody, we have to put ourselves straining. And I know we come here to be fueled, but at some point, it's not about what we want from church. It's about what we can give to church. We come to offer a sacrifice of praise. And what Jesus likes, he likes our singing. He loves it better when we love one another deeply from the heart. And we do what it takes to do that. So I'm going to have an application when I do my last word anyways. Let me pray. So, Father, thanks for coming, for being sent to us. Thanks that you just didn't look from heaven and say, man, they're messed up. Good luck to them. But you decided to take on flesh and blood, to get involved, in order that you could send your Spirit, in order that you could include us in your redemption plan. And you ennobled us. Before we were just wandering without purpose, without hope, and you said, I'm going to give you a purpose bigger than yourselves. And Lord, help us to get out of ourselves, just thinking about me and what I want. Help us to be thinking about others, to love each other deeply, even at a cost that is great. Help us to love our community, even when it's not comfortable for us, but because we long to see them know the kingdom of God and his presence in this world. And give us courage to obey. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. You can be seated. You know, I found it interesting that we sang a song about Jesus' love for me, how wonderful that he's saved me. But then it didn't stay there. It went on, now the church, arise, let love reach to the other side. See, it can't just stay with me. It has to touch me, but it can't stay there. It has to touch us so that love reaches to the side. We build the church as we get unified, joined by love. Let the church arise. So let's imagine that the Leafs won a hockey game. Not hard to do. And let's say the Leaf Nation says, we won. And now let's imagine the team goes, what do you mean you? It's not about you. It's about us. We won the game. See, sometimes that's what churches do to the whole kingdom. It's not about anybody else in the kingdom. It's just about me and my particular church, my particular denomination. And so the team goes, no, it wasn't you who won the game. We won the game. And the rammer goes, oh, wait a second. What do you mean you? It wasn't you who failed. It was me who won that game for us. It's all about me. Can you imagine what would happen to that team, that franchise, if everyone had that kind of attitude? It would go nowhere. Friends, that's what the church can sometimes do. We make it all about me. instead of our church reaching out to God's nation, His kingdom, doing greater things. So I know that pastors can't organize this. We can't manipulate people to love one another, but we can try. So I need, please, if you feel in any way like you don't want to, you're probably the one. I need 14 volunteers here right now. Come straight up, 14. Come on. 14 volunteers. 14 volunteers. 14. Oh my God. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I need 3 more. 3 more. Come on. 1, 2, 3. That's it.
What am I volunteering for?
Oh, what?
Maybe smart negotiation.
Okay. So what I have is 14 Tim Hortons cards. Your assignment, find somebody you do not know. You're going to take them out for coffee, not today, in the middle of the week sometime. Like you would a friend. Okay? So here you go. Find a friend, a new friend, and just... Hey, don't kid yourself. It's only got $1 on it. All right. Now, you guys can be seated. In order to do this, you guys can't leave right away, because usually the first ones out are the ones who feel least connected. So today, by special arrangement, I've made coffee on me. It's out there. I want everybody to say, for the next 10 minutes, I'm not going to go anywhere. And allow people to approach you and introduce them. If no one's approaching you, maybe they're waiting for you to approach them. I know you're an introvert. That'll take energy. It's not about you. Okay? What if we really tried to love each other deeply from the heart? What would happen, not only to us, but in our community? What if God decided, man, these guys need help loving. I'm going to give more of my Spirit for that purpose. Wouldn't you love to be filled by the Spirit of God as a people? So, here's your assignment. Right after church, don't go anywhere. I mean, out there, but not in here. Allow people to introduce themselves, and if they're not, you introduce yourself to people. Let us begin to consider that this is our family, and if you don't know everybody in your family, you've got a problem. And let's love each other deeply from the heart, building relationships, not just on Sunday, but like you would with any other friend through the week. Let's be a little more conscientious about who we're called to be for the sake of the world. Go in the grace and in the peace of God, and let His love breathe into you in life.